The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, and I've got a couple of panelists to introduce you to that you may not be familiar with, or you may be familiar with them. Either way, they're going to be a lot of fun. First up, we've got Izzy Long. He's a video editor and animator for the Gun Collective. Izzy, welcome to the show. You're muted.
I'm an idiot. Thanks for having me, G.
You bet, man. Next up, we've got Matthew Shinzing, the creator and driving force behind LFD Research on YouTube and the Geeks, Gadgets, and Gun podcast. Matthew, welcome to This Week in Guns.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Glad to have both you guys here. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, go to patriotpatch.co, check out their Patch of the Month Club, and check out all the other cool stuff they have. So I've got right here just the newest November patches. I haven't even taken them out of the wrapper yet because they're so amazing. This is a shopping cart full of guns in my hand that I'm showing to the video screen. And if you are on the podcast audio version, it is a shopping cart with belt-fed pistols. It looks like a SCAR. I see a Tavor, an AK, a shotgun, all kinds of great stuff in there. And the other one is Gobble This. It is a turkey with the pin pulled from a grenade. And it looks like a SCAR heavy on his back. Amazing. 2 stickers plus a Patriot Patch Company sticker, all involved in their Patch of the Month Club. $15. But look, it's so much more than that. It's t-shirts, it's cleaning mats, it's amazing patches every single month. And they're just constantly upping the game in the patch field, and it's just amazing. So go check them out. PatriotPatch.co gets you everything there, and definitely check out that Patch of the Month Club. Guys, before we actually get started, I just wanted to make an announcement. So This Week in Guns has landed its first official advertiser since I took over. I just wanted to announce that Manticore Arms has signed on as the first advertiser for This Week in Guns. Yeah, exactly. Sven and Kristen. Izzy, you're familiar with Manticore Arms, right?
I am, yep.
You listen to We Like Shooting occasionally?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So anyone who does listen to We Like Shooting is familiar with Manticore Arms, but I understand that This Week in Guns audience may not be familiar with them. So I just wanted to start off and tell you a little bit about the company. Manticore Arms has been around for a while. They make a lot of unique products for the firearms market, but more importantly, they are big supporters of the podcasting game. So Sven Johnson is the owner, his wife Kristen, Aaron Edwards, good buddy over there. Now they brought in Sven's brother Anders as well, and it's a family business. These guys work really hard. The product that I want to talk about tonight is called the Transformer Rail. And for people who don't know, Transformer Rails basically invented to solve a problem. The problem is that we had Keymod for a while. So we bought attachments for Keymod. Then we got M-Lock, and we bought attachments for M-Lock. And then who knows what the next thing is going to be. It may be P-Lock, and we just haven't seen what that is, or G-Lock. Well, I guess that would be a Glock, but you never know how they're going to attach that. The Transformer Rail basically future-proofs the entire thing. So no matter what you buy, what connection comes out, they'll be able to manufacture a panel for it. So that means that you, on the same rail, you can just insert different panels, and you can have Keymod, M-Lock, Picatinny, all in the same rail. They're very inexpensive, under $150 for even the 15-inch model, and I want you to go check it out. The coupon code that you can use at manticorearms.com is TWG10. So go check that out. Tell Manticore Arms that you appreciate them supporting the network and the show. And let's get into the stories, guys. Unfortunately, normally on the show, we start off with some positive news. Tonight, I'm not going to be able to do that just purely because we do need to discuss the news. And in Texas, a gunman kills 26 in a Texas church shooting. So basically, guy upset. It appears to be at his in-laws. This is the church that his in-laws went to. Walks in, opens fire with a firearm, and slays many people. 27 was the death count that I saw. And in a church that only had 50 people in it, I think there was over 20 injured as well. So just about everyone was affected in there. What I found interesting is that we always spout the good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. Well, that was the case here. A man was down the road a little ways from the church. His daughter came in and said that someone was shooting up the church. The guy went, loaded a magazine, grabbed his AR-15, walked out of his house, not even wearing shoes. Walks up to the church. As the murderer walks out of the church, they lock eyes, spot each other. Good Samaritan kneels down behind a vehicle. They exchange some shots. Shooter is hit twice, jumps in his car, starts to drive away. Good Samaritan says, oh no, what if he goes and kills other people? Runs up to a stoplight and sees a vehicle being driven at that stoplight, a guy in a truck, says, hey, can you help me? That guy just shot up a church and we can't let him get away. So hops in the truck with him. They pursue for a little while. Eventually the murderer ends up in a ditch, and 5 minutes later, I believe the police show up and he is dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But had the Good Samaritan, had the guy driving the truck not showed up, what may have happened? Could he have driven somewhere else? Could he have killed more people? The chance is probably highly likely that that would be the case. He would have walked out of there scot-free and been free to go spread mayhem and murder in some other area. So that's enough for me for a minute. What do you guys think?
This is horrible.
Yeah, truly awful.
I think one of the things that kind of annoys me is the amount of media misinformation.
Yes.
Under the guise of just not covering this situation in its really confusing details, but in order just to be first, because if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah, without question.
Yeah, it really is a tragedy, and this is kind of what I expect to go from here on out. We're going to see more and more of these attacks happening with AR-15s because they are now what the 12-gauge shotgun was 50 years ago, where everybody and their brother has one or five.
Yeah, I agree. I saw someone post today that, holding the AR-15 responsible for murders is like holding a Toyota Camry responsible for vehicular manslaughter or something like that. And I agree. Like, it is probably one of the most well-known firearms in the United States now. AR-15s are popular. We know that that's the case. They are probably as common, if not more common, than Toyota Camrys. And we are going to see that. So, guys, it actually turns out that the shooter was identified as a former Air Force airman. He was court-martialed in 2012 for domestic violence. Apparently, he'd beat up his wife and child. Spent 12 months in jail and inside the U.S. military, and got out. It also turns out that the Air Force did not report that incarceration to NICS, to the FBI database. Had that happened, he wouldn't have been able to legally buy a firearm. And I think that's a huge bureaucratic nightmare, to be perfectly honest.
Agreed.
It really is. But then again, you also have to look at it. This is one misdemeanor where you lose your rights for life.
Yes.
Should it always be that way? I don't think so. But then again, when you're fracturing the skull of an infant, that's more than just plain old simple domestic abuse.
Right. It's not like you have an argument at a freaking picnic,
Yeah. I completely agree. Just, just more ridiculousness. Senate Democrats push for gun control within hours of shooting. I don't think anyone is really surprised by that. We saw all over Twitter, Senator Bob Casey. In addition to offering my prayers and thoughts, I also believe Congress must take action on gun violence. Senator Dick Durbin. The shooter turned his gun on people, kids, in a place of worship. America is in the grips of a gun violence crisis. Congress must act. Richard Blumenthal. Horror, heartbreak, shame. Enough is enough. Now is the time for common sense gun violence prevention steps. Congressional complicity must end. Dianne Feinstein, never one to let the blood dry. When will we decide that we can't accept massacres in our places of worship, schools, or at concerts? When will we actually do something?
And interesting enough, just 1 week ago, They said don't politicize this incident after the terrorist in New York.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not surprising Feinstein had, within what, days? She had legislation ready for this. Sitting, she had it ready.
Oh, yeah, she just got it sitting there. It was actually within hours, to be perfect. The shooting happened November 5th. I'm sorry, the murder happened November 5th. And Feinstein sent that out at 4:04 p.m. November 5th. So here's my opinion on this. Again, everyone always says, let the dust settle before we take a stand. I mean, the opposition is not going to play by those rules, and you can never win a battle if you play by rules that the opposition doesn't follow. We need to be talking about things immediately because they're going to do it, and people are going to be very emotional at that time. And honestly, we need to play offense as much as we need to play defense.
We need to be more vigilant.
And this incident completely pointed out that, hey, it stops when a good guy with a gun confronts the attacker.
Yeah. So here's the thing is this guy had the Air Force turned that information over to Nix, would have been declined to buy a firearm. So he probably wouldn't have had the gun that he had. Could he maybe have found one elsewhere, bought one illegally? Sure, probably. I mean, the fact that he even had one was a failure in the system that's set up. So do more laws help, or what if we just followed the laws and the policies and the things that we already have in place?
Another good question is, what was it that the Texas department found to prevent him from getting a concealed carry permit that did not come up during the NICS check?
True.
Why was there a differential there?
Yeah,
Let's
correct.
actually look at what the two sources used to go and vet this guy. NICS apparently was failing at something. So what did Texas come up with?
Yeah, exactly. So he did apply for a concealed carry permit and was declined by the state of Texas, rejected for that permit. So they definitely found something. And, that I think we need to fix that kind of thing. I think we need to figure out, like Matt just said, what was the change? What was the difference? And figure out how to get that information in the NICS. Because look, we have laws in place that prevent, violent felons, domestic violence, things like that from getting and acquiring firearms. Obviously, criminals don't give a shit about laws. Timestamp. So, what makes us think that more laws are actually going to affect anything? I don't think that's the case, and it's not going to happen.
And to kind of quell a lot of people's fears, I would assume, is there's probably one camp who goes, well, if we're going to have multiple agencies communicating on whether or not I can purchase a firearm, for example, for whatever reason, doesn't that imply an illegal registry of some sort? And communicating something to NICS, I think personally, is not not at that level. Like perfect example is if you are convicted of something, that's public information. Yeah. So whether the news finds it out, I mean, would you rather the news find it out, or would you rather just it stay at least in your NICS permanent record, as it were?
Well, there's been some really interesting stuff. Paloma Capana out of New York, in her fights with all the issues where New York is submitting people who have not been adjudicated mentally deficient as mentally deficient to lose their rights. She found out that the FBI is running every NICS check through the terrorist watch list as well, illegally.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
In 2013, there was the Grassley-Cruz legislation that probably would have helped a little bit with this as well. And that was a law that Democrats filibustered, and it never saw the light of day. There were two critical components there. It mandated that federal agencies, including the Air Force, report to NICS, because that had been a problem back then. And if it had been reported to the background database, he lied on his forms. It was also a felony to lie on the forms already. But the Grassley-Cruz legislation would have made them report it, and then would have made them prosecute him for trying to buy a gun and lying on those forms. But that was filibustered, so I think that it has nothing to do with doing something. It has nothing to do with quelling violence that is perpetrated against us with guns. It just has to do with whatever political machinery they have, whatever political needs they have at the time. It's never about actually solving a problem. It's just about getting reelected, lining their pockets, and building their empires.
I mean, honestly, if we want something we can do right now that we could push without getting into the politics of it whatsoever, is pushing to teach more kids in school trauma care. Teach them how to use a tourniquet. Teach them
firearm safety.
Well, even more than firearm safety. Just when, hey, this guy's wounded. Okay, they're bleeding out. How do I treat that?
Mhm.
Not just, hey, put a Band-Aid on it. Actual, let's save somebody's life here. If everybody knew that, then as soon as the medics show up, they can just start passing out tourniquets on their way to the most severely injured. So the people that could save themselves if they had a tool know how to use the tool.
Yeah, certainly I'm a big advocate of medical training and medical skills and abilities for sure.
I remember when I was 12 years old in the Boy Scouts, we started learning about tourniquets and stuff like that.
Yep, I was actually just getting ready to say exactly that. Boy Scouts, stuff like that. I do think we need stuff like that in schools. But the problem is that we're having trouble even keeping books that we've had in schools for 50, 100 years. And now we talk about something that's scary like medical training or tourniquets or gunshot wounds. I don't think in today's snowflake society that we're going to see it. We may see it in some smaller rural areas. We may see it in some, conservative strongholds, places like that. But I just don't think we're going to see it because it's scary and it reminds them that there's evil in the world and they just can't live the pie in the sky utopia that they believe they live in, even though we all know that it's an incredibly fragile ecosystem where violence can lash out at any moment in time.
That's right.
Honestly, use the classes to our benefit. When we have stuff like pottery class where people are using pottery wheels, that's a piece of rotating equipment that can do a lot of damage. Shop class. Anything where the kids are using a piece of machinery that could severely injure you. How about have a prerequisite to get in these classes, which kids want to take? You got to learn how to do med. Just so if someone's hurt, you can take care of it.
Yep.
Heck, even health class. I mean, that's where kids are learning about sex ed. They're learning about, pretty much all of that kind of stuff. I mean, that right there. I mean, just to have even the most minuscule trauma care education would be awesome.
But we're too busy learning about chlamydia and
how to put on a condom and
exactly then we are tourniquets and how to save a life. So the pastor of the actual church, Pastor Robert Jeffress, said that gun control could not have prevented the Texas church shooting. Came out, it was on Fox News, but he said no conceivable gun control measure could have prevented the Texas church shooting because the problem is the evil in the heart, not the gun in the hand, or as my good friend Mike C says, it's the mental, not the metal. I presume that all of us basically agree with what the pastor said.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We did see Scalise from the Alexandria shooting. He came out and he had been a victim and said, "Look, this is why we need the Second Amendment, not a reason to get rid of it." The Texas Attorney General also said that the shooting aftermath should lead to more gun carriers, not gun control. And again, not too surprising in Texas, but also I thought a bright spot of a horrible, horrible situation when the leaders, the politicians actually come out and speak in what I consider to be common sense. So do you guys off the top of your heads know the names of the two gentlemen that actually took action, put themselves in harm's way? I'm going to pull it up right now. I never say the killer's name. I've got
I can see the guy. He has like a Santa Claus type beard, and I think that was actually kind of one of the things that was brought up. It's like he was actually getting ready to grow his beard because he is Santa every year.
Yep.
In his neighborhood or something.
Yep, I totally agree. I thought it was awesome. I pull up those names right now because
one of them is Stephen Williford.
Stephen Williford, the guy that was the barefoot man with the AR-15.
Yep.
And the guy that he jumped in the truck, his name was. I see the murderer's name everywhere, which is really annoying to me.
It really is tragic that our media is giving more coverage to the heinous individual instead of the two heroes that stepped up.
Agreed.
Let's see. Stephen Williford. It was the guy with the AR-15, and the other guy's name is Langendorf.
What did I maybe I missed something, but the guy
shooting at each other.
Oops. I love autoplay video. What were you going to say, Izzy?
I was curious. I keep seeing two pictures. Keep seeing an older gentleman with a beard, and then I see another guy that looks like Ted Nugent.
Yeah, older gentleman with a beard was the guy with the AR-15 that took shots at the murderer, and Langendorfer was the one driving the truck that said, "Sure, hop in, let's go."
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, pretty awesome. We'll move on just a little bit, and we'll talk about those two gentlemen. It turns out Dana Loesch published a tweet, I believe, that said the man who stopped the Texas shooter is an NRA member and an instructor. So at some point he had been certified as an NRA firearms instructor, definitely a member of the NRA. You don't see a whole lot about this in the mainstream media. I've noticed that every article we've talked about so far has been Breitbart, Fox News, things like that, CNN, MSNBC. I have not seen them cover this as much as I've seen. And that could be confirmation bias where, the news sources are going to cover what they think is the most important thing. However, I think it is important to note that, this is a guy who he's one of us, member of the NRA, NRA firearms instructor. This is a guy who had an AR-15, loaded it up, went outside barefoot. He's to be commended in my opinion. And it's just nice to see something positive come out of something so horrible.
Very, very true. And who knows how many lives he saved. But we know it was at least one.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. At Concealed Nation, there's an article that talks about 2 states ban concealed carry in church, but 7 still require permission. What are you guys' thoughts there? The 2 states, by the way, are Nebraska and Louisiana. They completely ban concealed carry in churches.
Yeah, it pisses me off, and I still haven't gotten our state organization to say, hey, yeah, we need to fix this yet.
Yeah. So in Nebraska, they allow a church to authorize an armed security team if the team members have carry permits and written notice is given to church members. Louisiana law is similar, but requires an extra 8 hours of training every year. 7 states and DC that require the permission of a church leader to conceal carry firearms in church, and 41 states where carry in churches is treated the same way as other private property. Mm-hmm. Here's my opinion on this. It's the Second Amendment. It is a natural right for self-defense and protection. I like to see things like the extra 8 hours of training, but I don't think that you can make requirements like that. I think it's wrong.
I don't know any self-respecting, and I hate to use the term, but God-fearing pastor that would. I guess what I'm getting at is concealed is concealed.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're going into some place that's got a no guns allowed, and if you are caught, you're going to be asked to leave, or in some states prosecuted, God forbid, for, exercising your right. But in this case, if it were to happen and, a Good Samaritan were to actually return fire and save lives, I seriously doubt any church would have an issue with, the life-saving, of that. Having said that, I think the thing that sticks out in my mind in terms of that issue is the church that I went to when I grew up in Pennsylvania, the whole place could maybe hold 50 people. But when I moved here to Minnesota, they have these massive, it looks like a small, like a mini, how do I put it?
It's like a
mini arena. It's huge. It's like you can fit hundreds of people in there, and they're on tiers, So I'm wondering if those types of places that, are huge like that can afford the security team to where it's less of an, I guess, burden or issue to the common person.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I've actually worked with a church team here, gone over their strategies, gone over their training. And and they're all volunteer. They don't work for the church. They just define who these people are, and they all concealed carry.
Huh.
And they go train together at the range, and this is just something they do to take care of each other and the congregation and their friends, their families. And the church knows about it. The church authorizes it. The church encourages it. And that's all well and good. They strategically position themselves throughout the church. And this is the point that I want to bring up here is that, and again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm armchair quarterbacking. Because look, I have tried to put myself in this situation. You're sitting there, you're at church, you're feeling positive, uplifted, you're feeling whatever you're feeling, you're sitting there, you're facing the pulpit, and suddenly from behind you start to hear really, really loud noises that you don't expect. You get some auditory and you get tunnel vision, you get auditory exclusion, which means that your hearing shrinks in on itself, and you're not going to even necessarily hear all the gunshots or screams or anything because your brain is trying to process too much. After a couple seconds, the people will start screaming. They will, start standing up, trying to run, hitting the ground. You're going to be pushed, jostled, everything else. So I am not trying to say that if I was there and I had a firearm that I would have been able to do anything. This is a very, very confusing and a very, very quick situation. But when I worked with the church team, we strategically placed people in specific positions where they could cover points of ingress and egress. And I think that that's something that has to happen, because if someone walks in there and there is someone watching that door with a gun, yes, enjoying the sermon, enjoying the service at the same time, but just positioned their chair in a way where they can mark those exits and entrances. And there's people up on the balconies, and it's all overlapping and it's all pointing and helping them keep an eye on all these things. I think if churches just have people in those situations, get the guy who played college ball, get him to sit by the door, and if someone comes in, he can tackle him, like whatever. Just have planning. Failing to plan is planning to fail, in my opinion, and it's never been more true than in situations like this.
Very true, and not to mention there are missionaries overseas that have dealt with attacks like this many a time, because you see this attack more often outside the states than you do inside the states. But it's not unheard of, and it's been around for a long time, and it's not going away anytime soon.
In the early, this is from the Concealed Nation article. It says in the early colonies, people were sometimes required to be armed at churches. In Origins and Development of the Second Amendment, I found a reference to colonial requirements to carry guns in church from the Virginia Laws of Arms Bearing. And it says, and he quotes, "All men that are fitting to bear arms shall bring their pieces to the church."
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So, thoughts go out to the victims, their families, the friends, the congregation, the neighborhood, the city, everyone who's affected by this heinous murderer. And congrats to Williford and Langen. Dang it, I already forgot his name again. I need to remember it because it's important. Langendorfer. Congrats to those guys. And I saw the picture of them hugging at a candlelight vigil, and I thought that was pretty amazing. These are two men thrown into a situation that most people can't even process, much less react. And I'm very against the term hero being misused. I think that a lot of people can be heroic. A lot of people are in situations where they might need to be heroic, but not everybody is a hero. And I think that when we throw around the term too much, it stops us from having the impact when we actually have to apply it to two gentlemen such as these. I think both of them acted heroically and were heroes, and they have my respect.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move into some a little bit more uplifting news here. Now, Matthew, I think you might find this interesting. The Ghost Gunner 2 got some updates. For people that don't actually know what that is, Defense Distributed invented the Ghost Gunner a while back, and it was a CNC machine, basically a CNC toaster machine type thing that allowed people to finish 80% lower receivers for AR-15s in their kitchen. You could buy it. It already had the programming built in. You would put the 80%er in and press a couple buttons, and bada boom, bada bing, you would have a finished 80% receiver. On October 3rd, 2016 was when that happened. Now they've come out with the Ghost Gunner 2, which is much advanced, designed by, Defense Distributed founder Cody Wilson was there and showed it to Breitbart. But basically, you can do 80% 1911s, Glocks, AR-15s, 308s, and all kinds of other stuff there. They show a picture of a polymer 80 that was done in there, and yeah, a 1911 frame which was done in there, and just all kinds of cool stuff. I almost feel like it might be time for me to buy one of these. They're pretty awesome machines, and I don't know, Matthew, what are your thoughts here?
It was great when I got to talk to Cody Wilson. It sounded like they were going to offer updates if you already have a Ghost Gunner to the Ghost Gunner to update components to be able to do 1911s and like. And honestly, the box is so small, it's hard to conceive. It's like I'm doing all this in a box that is smaller than most keyboards, cubed.
Yep, I totally agree. They are not ginormous machines. So the Ghost Gunner 2, it actually does have like some upgraded spindles and things like that. Definitely some hardware improvements, but absolutely some software improvements as well. I think it's a really cool thing, and I totally believe in the freedom. We can all build firearms in our garages. It's part of being an American. It's part of it's completely allowed. The ATF they very often make sure that they don't infringe on that right or that ability when they issue opinions and things like that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But that is something that we are all allowed to do, and this just kind of makes it easier.
Do they state any pricing information?
$1,675.
Yep.
That's actually justifiable with the amount of stuff it does now.
Yeah. And it's $100 for shipping as well. But
that's awesome.
I think that's the cost of a lower end 3D printer. This is basically the 3D printer for all the guns you could ever want.
And go ahead.
Go ahead, Matthew.
It's roughly about the same price as if you got your own mill at home. It just doesn't weigh 800 pounds.
Yep.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. Defense Distributed doing cool stuff. You guys
Interesting story.
Their
go ahead. COO is actually a British foreign national who is a former socialist. Yeah, she actually gave a speech over at GRPC that was really interesting. And if you want to check it out, we actually have all the panels from GRPC on our YouTube channel.
That is so cool. I love it. Would you guys... So I believe that it would be, if I bought this machine, I would believe it would be illegal for me to let someone else use it. You guys have any input there?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, it's more or less you have to use the machine. Now, it might be debatable if you let somebody else program the software on how it goes, if you're doing the programming to use their machine. But that would be about the only way you could possibly use somebody else's machine.
Yeah. Oh, I believe that actually it comes with the inclusion of the Defense Distributed cutting files. So
right, but therein lies the problem. If you don't own the machine, where if you're doing a manual mill, if you're manually doing it yourself, hey, you're kosher, even if you're borrowing a buddy's machine, because you're actually doing the action, not to somebody else's plans.
One other thing is I know that there used to be a ton of AR-15 and AK build parties, things like that. I still see them occasionally, but they're not popular like they once were because basically even the act of just them pressing the button once everything was set up was somehow breaking ATF regulations, rules, or law, whatever it happened to be at that time.
Basically what was happening is they had put all the thinking into it, and it was their machine, and then you just brought your lower, you put it in there, and then hit the button to use their idea and technology, which is probably why the ATFs are going, no.
Yeah. Completely agree. I wonder, let's see. So $1,675. I think the one thing that people don't necessarily understand is that 80% receivers are actually pretty dang expensive as well. DD Defense Distributed sells them on the website actually for $65 for an AR-15, $85 for a 308. So while that is $30 to $40 less, that $40, how long is it going to take before you
have to build a ton of them, and you're not really saving anything.
Especially right now. Good.
Except for when you find a deal. Like I've seen the Glock lowers for $50. I've seen the AR-15 in that $50 price range. Granted, you can buy a fully machined receiver for less than that, but
You can get an Anderson lower right now. I think I saw yesterday at Brownells for like $30 now.
Yeah, I bought 7 Anderson lowers at $34.95 each a while back.
Wow.
Which pretty interesting as well.
And when you're talking about amortizing this cost over time, well, how many are you going to build?
42 is by my math. If you save about $40 average per, it's going to take 42 before you break even. And that doesn't include new cutting, jig, what's the word I'm looking for? Bits, more cutting bits, things like that. I also have to wonder, with all the disparity and all the differences in the AR-15 lower receivers, do you have to buy the ones that Defense Distributed makes? Because I noticed that they say that they're made specifically for the Ghost Gunner, and your cuts are going to be different based on a lot of external dimensions and things like that. So you may even have to have new cut files for all those.
But then again, if you know somebody who already does CAD work themselves, for somebody like that, this is perfect because they can build their CAD files and have it build all their components for their gun. Everything but the barrel could be made by this if you can get it dimensionally small enough to fit inside the Ghost Gunner. And you can program your own CAD for use on this machine. Now, those are the guys that can make this machine do every possible thing out of it.
Yeah. I think we need to start like a GoFundMe or something for Guy in a Garage. I think that this would be amazing for him. And he makes some pretty awesome YouTube content. I would really enjoy to see what he could do with something like this.
The thing that I guess jumps out at me is, and I would not doubt for a second, there's got to be some guy and or group of guys set up as an LLC or whatever that, like, perfect example is the Guy in the Garage. I guess what I'm trying to say is like this would make a garage level Wilson Combat custom gun manufacturer an actual attainable possibility.
Yeah, they just have to have the
volume.
Yeah, and they would. Yeah, I agree. They would also have to have the appropriate FFL, SOT, all that good stuff.
Right.
And then, of course, the question you have to ask is, how many do you produce where this machine is good for you versus all the wear and tear you're going to put on it? You need something that's actual industry level.
Very true. Yeah, it's tough to say what that would be at this point. But again, Defense Distributed, Cody Wilson, doing very cool things. And that price tag is almost to the point where I'm like, well, I can't afford not to buy this. Did you guys see that IWI has released or announced a new handgun called the Masada?
Mm-hmm. John covered it on Monday's show.
Well, then you know all about it. Izzy, why don't you tell us what you saw?
It's hard to explain. Actually, I should bring up the episode, but
I can help. It's a
new
line of striker fired pistols, 9x19. So just normal 9mm. Barrels low profile, allows for reduced recoil. Glass reinforced polymer frame. Trigger pulls a little bit over 5 pounds, which not too terrible. Not the best I've ever seen. Built-in trigger safety and magazines 17+1. Polygonal rifling in the barrel. So they've kind of gone the Glock route instead of what we normally see. What did John think, Izzy?
He didn't, let's put it this way. He didn't have anything glaringly bad to say about it. Off the top of my head, sorry, I'm in legal brief mode right now, so it's harder for me to remember Monday's show.
Izzy, I forgot your name a few minutes ago, so don't worry about it. I understand.
That happens far too often. I when I was putting together the show and I was getting the assets together, and I was looking at that's the first thing that came to my mind. Once I saw 17+1 and the rifling in the barrel, I was like, well, that's just like a Glock 17, or at least a stock one anyway. And so we know who they're trying to target at least.
Yeah. And so, I mean, IWI has some handguns that I've seen. They're all usually pretty big. This one seems a more general size, which I'm interested.
The bore axis is lower.
This is their first striker fired. It's all pretty much basic, but then again, it's fully ambidextrous. And it's where a lot of the current polymer guns are moving to.
Yeah. And, it has some features like interchangeable back straps that we see in a lot of other firearms in the industry these days. One interesting thing is fully ambidextrous operating controls, and that includes slide stop, magazine, and safety. Safety is by special order, it looks like. But I think that's kind of interesting and kind of nice. I actually I was helping train some students today, and one of the students was left-handed, left-eye dominant, and there was some discussion of, well, should we find an ambi gun for him? And I was like, no, let's teach him how to shoot his gun. Like, left-handed people use right-handed firearms all the time, but it is cool to have this option for other people. No price, releasing in Q1 2018, and I think it's going to be kind of interesting. I don't know if I would say that I'm excited about it, but having a company like IWI put out a new pistol, I think is usually pretty good.
I know we know lots of people that are friends of the Firearms Radio Network that swear by their Tavors.
Yes, we certainly do. We certainly do. In fact, Manticore Arms makes a lot of parts and accessories and upgrades for your Tavor.
Indeed. And it comes in 4 colors, which is, I don't want to say a unicorn. Like, perfect example is if I wanted an M&P, perfect example. Like, I was so excited when the M&P 2.0 or M2.0 came out, and all they showed was the flat dark earth version.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to go to my gun stores right now, my local gun store, they don't have that one. They just have the black one. And I think it's because a majority of shooters aren't real happy with the thumb safety that's on that one. And the other ones don't have that, I guess.
Yes, I totally agree. So I don't like to call myself a fanboy, but I definitely shoot the M&P better. So I heavily invest in the platform. So I've been shooting an M&P Pro and an M&P Pro Core. Both have the 5-inch barrel on them. I've been shooting those for a long time in competition, in training, and everything that I do. So I'm really comfortable with both those firearms, and I love them. So when I saw the 2.0 come out with the 5-inch model in FDE, I was like, that's great. And then I saw, only have a manual safety. There's no versions with the 5-inch barrel that didn't have the safety at that point. So I did pick that one up from Brownells. But then I've just gone insane since then. I've got the 2.0 standard. I've got the 2.0 compact. Yeah, it's just like, it's an M&P party.
You did get the compact. I
did get the compact. I've got it. I shot 525 rounds through it the other day, and so far, a huge fan.
I have an old M&P 9C. Mm-hmm. That was my first and only M&P. And I got that just when they were starting to announce the M&P 2.0, when it leaked, when Academy accidentally leaked it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was kind of like a, well, I hate to use this analogy, but I was like an Apple computer buyer.
Right.
Where you save up for 6 years to buy an extremely overpriced, somewhat, decent computer. And the next day, like there's something that's the same price, but of course, the nature of the way computers goes, twice as fast and everything you really want. Yeah,
totally, completely agree. Yeah, so I do like them, and I'm looking forward to the Masada. But would I give up an M&P for a Masada? Probably not. I'm heavily invested into the M&Ps. All right, moving on to the next one. Massachusetts lawmakers have approved a ban on bump stock. So Massachusetts, the first ones to fall down this hole. If signed by the governor of the state, would be the first to ban bump stock since the deadliest mass shooting, mass murder is what I like to say, in modern U.S. history.
And if I remember right, possession of one is a felony with 20 years in prison or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just straight up. Yeah, you really went down the crazy train for this. Because what's that going to do to stop it? I mean, you already have everything that the Attorney General, Mara Healy, has done with reclassifying the assault weapons ban and saying, guess what? This law that's been in the books for 10 years, I'm reinterpreting it. So all these transactions you did on our registry during this time frame are now no longer legal. So we just won't prosecute you for this at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ridiculous. So the Republican governor, Charlie Baker, does support this ban. It was part of a budget bill that went through the House and the Senate. They were initially talking about banning any device that increased the discharge rate, which obviously we know is a rabbit hole that we would never come out of. Absolutely ridiculous. But they did narrow the language, specifically prohibiting bump stocks and trigger cranks. So, in Massachusetts now, like Matthew just said, gone and a felony to possess.
It's so lame.
Where's next? California, Chicago, Washington.
That's almost a guarantee.
I think the Illinois one got held up in the House, so it didn't pass, but I could be wrong on that.
Completely agree.
It's unfortunate, but gun banners never stop.
No, they don't. And that's why we need to play offense as well as defense. Guys, USA Today has really stepped in it lately. They published something. They released a video that showed available modifications for the AR-15 style rifle. I just did air quotes. And one of them was a chainsaw bayonet. They also listed adding a pump shotgun attachment to the underside of the gun, which does actually exist. But have you guys ever seen a chainsaw bayonet? Where are they, and why don't I have one?
Totally. I've never seen one. And the memes that have been created today are awesome.
Honestly, I've seen a lot of guys attempt it, mainly because of Gears of War, aka 2008 came around and said, everybody, you play Gears of War, you want that chainsaw for your gun. Nobody's made it practical. I mean, there would probably be a dime a dozen if you could get them halfway as practical as what USATA showed, where it was tiny, small, and actually had the torque to do anything. But it doesn't exist. The physics don't allow something that small to actually exist and work.
Yeah, so I do have a small chainsaw that I actually duct taped to the front of one of my AR-15s, but it just wasn't practical because it was electric and I would have to pull the cord behind me everywhere I went. So not a huge fan of that. I did search for quite a while. I'm actually a little bit ashamed of how long I spent searching for a chainsaw that I could attach to the bottom of my transformer rail from Manticore Arms, but I just couldn't really find anything that looked great. The best thing I found was a telescoping pole chainsaw. It seemed about the right size, seemed about like something I could really attach, but again, electric. And they've got the batteries that come in some of them, but I feel like if that battery got shot, that it would be a bad day for me holding the firearm. Yeah, USA Today is a bunch of idiots.
So I did see one, it was maybe a week and a half ago through a Facebook group. It was a prop made for a Hollywood TV show on an AK-47 with a drum mag, and they had it on there, and it was like Zombie Killer something or other. It's just like completely ridiculous. That gun would be so nose heavy, you would have to have forearms the size of boulders just to hold it up.
Yep.
I saw today on Billy Johnson's Instagram, in his story, where you could do like video clips, he actually went out of his way to physically attach via some type of tape in just an actual chainsaw, and like he made it seem serious. It was actually hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, USA Today, like we talked earlier, jumping on to editorialize, jumping on to stoke the flame, stoke the fire with a bunch of made up nonsense that doesn't actually exist. And this is the media. USA Today is the media, and this is the irresponsible nonsense that we see through them. So I don't even know what to say. All right, moving on. I think we've covered most of the stuff there. So I just want to say thank you to all the listeners out there. I know that there's definitely been some upheaval since Jake left, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate all your continued support. I've gotten hundreds of emails and messages and just notes talking about the Firearms Radio Network and how much it meant to them. So I take it really, really personally. I want to make this show, I want to make the Firearms Radio Network the best that they can possibly be. We do need your help. A lot of you already pledge on Patreon and other plays. I would love it if you guys would still consider doing that. We're working really hard to make sure that the content's getting out there. Our producer, Kenny Ortega, he has added responsibility now. He's doing a great job to keep this show going. And, that costs money. It takes time. So I paid him today to just, say thank you for all the hard work that he's doing. But equipment, paying people to do work, things like that, all very important. Go to patreon.com/FRN if you're interested in helping support the show, and just check out what we have to offer there. And if you have any questions, let me know. This is the segment on the show where we get all offended, guys. And the first story, or the story from I'm Offended, is CMA lifts red carpet media restrictions on gun rights. Did you guys hear anything about this?
No, I haven't, but I got to check this out.
All right. So first off, Country Music Association issued restrictions on the types of questions that could be asked by red carpet journalists at this year's CMA Awards. They basically said the media would be prohibited from asking country music stars questions about the Las Vegas massacre, gun rights, and politics. Do you think that this is a big case of people that don't understand their audience?
Yeah, I would think that any self-respecting country artist would just go, you know what? I don't have to step in this puddle. Let's not step in this puddle. Let's not even go into politics. I want people from both sides of the aisle to like my music, and that's it.
Yeah, but to tell the media they can't ask questions about it. I mean, the Second Amendment community is pretty huge in country music. That is their market. That is the nature of their fans.
Right. But it also prevents some artists from coming out and going, ban all the guns.
Well, yeah, not all of them. In fact, there's been 2 of them after the Las Vegas massacre. Let's see, Caleb Keeter began calling for gun control just hours after, and Tim McGraw has actively supported gun control for a long time. No other country artist has voiced support for restricting the Second Amendment in the way that those 2 have previously. But I don't like an organization telling the media that they can't ask a certain question about a certain thing. It is up to the artist, to the producer, to whoever, whether they answer that question or not. And, good for them. Like, they have the choice. They can say, I'd prefer not to answer that, or they can answer it with what they truly feel. Doesn't matter either way. If there's pressure from fans or audience or whatever, okay, big deal. That's fine. Like, they have to live with that pressure. They live in the public eye. That's just the way it is.
I thought this is what Twitter was for. So you could say all your politics that nobody really wants to hear on a public format.
And now they've doubled their amount of characters on Twitter. So now it's just going to get, it's going to be interesting to see a lot of these tweets being really huge now.
Oh gosh. Now I can read all the hatred in more characters. That'll be great. But yeah, so anyway, the Country Music Association rescinded those restrictions. Apparently there was a little bit of an outrage, and they rescinded that. So the media can ask whatever they want. The artists can decide what to answer and what not to answer. And I think that's all how everything was intended to be.
So I don't think, other than the really, really big artists, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. What I was getting at was some artists, depending on what who their distributor is. For example, if you work for Sony, like perfect example is, because I'm here in Minnesota, Prince said years ago he wasn't able to even talk about certain things because Sony said, no, you can't talk about that, because it would mess with the brand or for whatever reason. I don't see that kind of thing being an issue with, I guess, country music as a stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah, I can concur with that for sure. So we talked last week, though, about the NFL not really understanding their market when the 49ers vowed to spend $500,000 to push gun control. And again, the Country Music Association seems for a moment that they didn't understand their market either. I'm glad they came to their senses.
Agreed.
All right. So we've talked about Patreon. We talked about Manticore Arms. We talked about Patriot Patch Company. Did you guys know that if you just go to firearmsradio.tv/Amazon and do your Amazon search there, the FRN gets a portion of the purchase price and it doesn't cost you a penny?
Yes, I did.
When I was looking for a chainsaw today, I started at firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. And I think you should too if you're looking for a chainsaw, or I've seen some other Antifa attachments that we won't talk about. But if you'd like to hear about
that one too,
you can find We Like Shooting Monday nights. All right. So the full auto news segment, stories the real media won't talk about and other crazy stuff. We all pick stories And let's see, Matt, I want to start with you. What's your story?
Well, interestingly enough, a 19-year-old man decided to pull out a gun on the south side. What city is this in? He decides to go up to a hot dog stand, pull out a gun, put it to the proprietor's head, demanding money, and then start running away. As he runs away, he readjusts his gun in his pants and figured out he maybe should have grabbed a couple more wieners from the hot dog stand as he was taking their money.
Oh, man. So they found him slumped in front of a house a few blocks away. That's pretty crazy. So tried to rob a hot dog stand, shot himself in the wiener. Is that irony at its finest, or am I just off base here?
That is definitely hardcore irony.
Don't really even know.
South side of Chicago.
Oh, there you go.
Should have known it.
There you go. I can't imagine a worse place to get shot. Like, you get shot in the hand, the foot, the leg, the arm. Like, those, they're going to heal. You may have a little bit of a scar, but there's just not enough tissue in that crotchal region to really support reconstruction or a normal life afterwards, I would think.
True, but maybe he can get nominated for a Darwin Award now.
I think he should win, but I think he needs to go just a little bit further and show how dedicated he is to winning one.
I'm wondering if some hot dog stands are going to name a hot dog after the guy.
Probably, actually. Oh man, Izzy, unfortunately, your story is not as funny. What did you have?
Well, it is not funny, and I'm not going to say the kid's name because A, I can't pronounce it, and B, he's a killer.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a kid that in Russia, I guess, who took a picture of himself with a circular saw immediately after slitting the throat, it looks like, of his shop teacher. And the shocking thing of it is the picture of the guy, or of the kid. When I first saw it, it wasn't a circular saw. It wasn't what he did. He looks just like the lead singer of Journey. But it's just horrifying. Like, he's just snapping selfies with a circular saw, and it says, smirking student armed with a circular saw murdered his teacher before snapping a selfie with the dead body. And just, it makes no sense. It says it's unclear so far if the saw was used, and in the picture, the saw is perfectly clean. So apparently,
if you go down further in the article, they show a bloody knife that they used to slit the teacher's throat.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awful, man. That's, well, I guess we have to ban knives now.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to be romantic, but yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Of course, the shop teacher had children, and,
health and safety teacher is what it says. So I don't even know what class that is, but yeah.
Weird.
So Steve Perry, get your life together, man. You're making mistakes.
Yeah, no kidding. and I don't want to say, I don't want to use the Florida Man reference, but like, you hear some of this weird off the wall kind of stuff coming out of Russia.
Oh yeah. Without question. Some of the best dash cam footage ever comes out of Russia.
Oh, totally. But
so guys, I picked my story specifically because it's from the Bangor Daily News. Ryan Kleckner really loves the Bangor Daily News. From Augusta, Maine, a violent struggle inside of Maine Walmart started with a comment over an untied shoelace and ended with gunfire, according to one man involved. So, investigators say the 31-year-old pulled a gun on another customer during an argument Monday night. The gun went off as the man tried to disarm him. A woman witnessed the fight, ran to the parking lot, suffered a medical emergency, and died. Not shot or anything, just probably heart attack, something like that. So anyway, one of the guy walked up to the shooter and told him his boot was untied, and somehow that led to gunfire, some lady running out and dying. I know a lot of people from Maine, and I'm starting to question what's going on out there. Is there something in the water? Bangor Daily News.
They're getting that Flint, Michigan water.
Yeah, I don't really know. So it doesn't really make sense. Is this like, do you guys remember a while back that, so if you see cops, usually people will flash their headlights to oncoming traffic to alert them about a speed trap or something like that?
Yep.
Well, there was a rumor started, and it turned out to be completely unfounded, that a lot of gangs if someone flashed their lights at them, that they were turning around and then targeting them. I wonder if this was one of those things where he just said, "Hey, your shoe's untied," and that was like some kind of gang speak for now you got to go down.
Oh my God.
Or someone was just really strung out on some drugs.
Yes, it absolutely could be. At this point, it's all very confusing. I don't really know. So, all right, guys, let's start wrapping this thing up. Izzy, you're up to so much, working over at the Gun Collective, doing so much good work. Whenever we are at SHOT Show, Aaron and I always bring you cold beverages. So
Thank you.
So we just want to know you're taken care of. We love the Gun Collective content. We know John Patton's important. We know Adam Kraut's important. But behind the scenes, Izzy is working hard to make all that happen. And the content quality has gone up so much since you started working with John. So thank you very much for all your hard work, sir. We really, truly appreciate it.
Thanks for watching.
Matthew, where can people find you and all the cool stuff that you guys do?
Well, to keep it pretty much simple, you can check out the podcast. We do geeksgadgetsandguns.com. Anywhere you go to find your podcast, you can find us there. And most recently, we did episode 171, where we brought you on, Sean, to give take 2.
171.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anyone if I got 171, but spoiler alert, I did.
I can totally say one of our hosts was totally 171 the following day after that.
Amazing. It was actually a really good time. I shared it to the We Like Shooting page and all that stuff. But yeah, I had a great time, and I really appreciate you guys having me on. But the podcast in general is great. LFD research on YouTube is all great. And what did you already give the URL?
Just geeksgadgetsandguns.com and lfdresearch.com if you want to check it out on YouTube. I can't say we've posted anything since GRPC, but we have a new high-speed camera we're getting fired up, so 2018 is going to be very interesting.
Very nice. I love it. All right. Thank you very much for being here, gentlemen, and thank you to everyone who's listening. Comment at the bottom of the YouTube video. Leave us reviews in iTunes. That helps people find the show. Truly, their algorithms are based heavily on reviews and things like that. Check out the Patriot Patch Company. Go thank Manticore Arms for signing on to support the show and keep the content coming live every single week. And also in the audio podcast download feeds, Patriot Patch Company, patriotpatch.co, Manticore Arms, manticorearms.com, coupon code TWG10 gets you 10% off every single thing on that website. And also patreon.com/FRN. That's all I'm going to do there. But hey, This Week in Guns is produced by Kenny Ortega, who's doing a fine job, and is a production of the Firearms Radio Network. We will talk to you guys next week.